This is Jenn with he, they pronouns. Jenn is calling in from Australia. Jenn, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up? Oh, hello, Jenn. Are you there? Jenn, one more call for you. Jenn, I don't think we can hear you. Up. Jenn's there. Hello, Jenn. Hello.
Hey.
I was this close to muting you, Jenn.
Hey, man. I was freaking out. I'm going, you work.
You made it. You made the cut. Congratulations. How can we help you, Jenn?
Well, just a little bit of fun. Like you guys are talking about like past life things, and so like it's not like I'm like believe it so much that it's like I define my whole life by this thing, but I have like two very distinct phobias that I've had since I was a young child. And I don't know, just sort of something that sort of makes sense of them is like if such a thing as a past life was real, like maybe I was a tree that was killed by this certain like strangler figs, because I've been scared of a plant, these figs, since I was a young child. Like I saw a photo of them in this book I was doing a project for primary school, and I just like it freaked me out. Like I was having cold sweats and like full panic attacks, and just every time like I see them, I can't even say the word. Like I know I said it just then, but like it's a real struggle for me to like even picture this plant. And so I was just sort of like, oh, isn't that funny? I'm scared of a plant. Ha ha ha. You know.
Now, and, I'm sorry to repeat the name here, but are we talking about figs?
Yeah, the ones that go on the trees. The birds drop the seed onto the branches of the trees, and then it eventually grows and strangles the host tree.
Oh, like a parasite. Okay.
Yeah. And like at first I was like, this is funny, haha, how funny, I'm scared of a plant, you know, like most people are scared of spiders or, you know, this or that, but I'm scared of a plant, you know, like, and and the other phobia I have, which is kind of common, so it's not like it's like a big deal, but I have a claustrophobia where if I can't move, like if I'm stuck in a situation and I can't move, like even if I can move physically, like, but I can't actually like get out of, like say I'm in a locked room even, or just something where I just cannot escape. It brings on a panic attack, which is pretty common. Like it's not like I'm just, you know, going, oh my gosh, this is evidence that I'm scared of a plant and I have claustrophobia. But I just think it's just, you know, talking about past lives, and I just thought I'd just give that kind of like little idea maybe out there that, like, you know, especially with all the science that is coming through, that plants are actually a lot more aware, and they're actually a lot more able to manipulate their environment than we've ever thought, you know. And so so it's just, I don't know.
So how does that, because you believe that you were a tree, or no, sorry, you don't believe that, but you've had this inclination that you were a tree in a past life because of this fear? Like is it the fear that drives that inclination? That's really interesting, because I feel like if you were afraid of it, you wouldn't think that you were one in a past life, but I don't know. Or
that you held over this this intense fear from a bad situation in a past life. Well, I mean, we were talking about pattern seeking earlier. That's understandable why you might draw that as a pattern.
Right.
And I don't know. There's a lot of different ways one could approach that. Certainly, we could say, okay, well, that's theory A. You know, let's think about maybe theories B, C, and D. You know, there may be other reasons. Like a lot of people have intense fears of needles. You know, and that's unlikely to have come from at least distant past lives, because that's a relatively new invention. That's interesting. I had to look up this plant that you're talking about. I actually wasn't aware of that. Now that I see pictures, like, okay, now I know what that's called. So thanks for the education there.
They freak me out, man. They freak me out. Like I can't even. I have to do that whole like regress my brain thing. Like I can sort of talk about them on a surface level, but if I even like begin to sort of, they freak me out. And I've been like that since I was a little kid. And like, I've never really, because I was raised like fundamentalist Christian. So, you know, like reincarnation was witches and devils and Buddhism and stuff like that, you know, like, so like, I never really entertained that idea of, you know, successive lives and things like that. But yeah, I just thought it was just, you know, you were talking about past lives and stuff. And it's just a little thing that it's like, the fact that I'm scared of a plant is just so hilarious. And and just sort of just to bring up like, just like how the science of plants.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the science a little bit, because I mean, certainly we, you know, always keep it open as a theory. No need to like immediately shoot it down or anything like that. But something to be aware of with past lives is that, you know, we've had many centuries to try to figure this out and see if we can get some sort of handle on an actual like evidence of a past life story. And there are lots of stories out there. Like, it's a very common belief in India, particularly, where it's kind of culturally available as an explanation. So you have a lot of people who will tell stories about, you know, the child who recounted the very detailed death that he had, you know, going down in a fighter plane. And they'll say that it was like exact in its details. And to make a very long story short, when we look into those and ask difficult questions, usually we find out that the stories are not quite as impressive as they've been handed down to us. And so, speaking of science again, you have to kind of ask yourself, well, then how, in what form would say that information from the tree, whatever form of consciousness it may be, what form would it take? Because after physical death, you know, it doesn't, as far as we know, there's no like mechanism for a personality to exist outside of a brain for a human, for sure. So you'd have to think about like what would be the mechanism of that transference. And so far, science doesn't give us that. Not to say that it never could or never would, but
of course, there are lots of these folks who will say, well, consciousness is really more like you're a radio antenna and, you know, that's being beamed to. So it's actually coming from somewhere else, you know, and you can always kind of, it's really a God of the gaps kind of argument, except for memory and consciousness and things like that. But I think Ross's point is very succinct, right? You have to explain the mechanism by which this would work. Otherwise, it's just a guess. It's just an idea. And there may be some
an
other
interesting idea.
An interesting idea for sure. But, you know, like Occam's razor, right? Is it more likely that you've had this past life, or there's these patterns of experiences that you've had that cause you to come to this belief? For myself, I remember being terrified of the rapture as a kid. I'd go inside a place and I'd see clothes laid out from the laundry, and I'm like, oh my God, my family's gone from the rapture. It's like, no, your clothes were just laid out. Or today even, Jen, I have this weird thing with sirens. I hate sirens, specifically like tornado sirens, because I grew up in Waco, Texas. Waco, you know, there's tornadoes that come around the area. So they have this siren that goes off. I know the exact time. It's the first Friday at 10 o'clock every month, and it still freaks me out every time. And I have to double check, like, this is the time, right? This is the time. It's not like a test, because they don't say it's a test. They should say it's a test every time. Yeah. That would make me feel better. But anyway, you know, it's one of those things where I don't know. I think I'm rational, probably not, but like some people say that I am, and it's like I still have this weird thing that freaks me out, and I don't know. Everybody's got those. So yeah,
for my wife, it's like the sound of a submarine or anything to do with a submarine, you know, and that's understandable. And I think things that we're exposed to when we're kids, especially, can have an outsized impact on our psychology, because they just get this kind of deep rooted position.
Definitely. So anyway, I don't think it's funny that you are afraid of plants. I think that's totally, I think that's, especially looking at crazy looking plants, that's reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a guy that's afraid of, it's trypophobia. You ever heard of trypophobia? It's where you're afraid of holes, like open holes in places. I know a guy, you'll show him, you know what I'm talking about, right? I've shown him pictures of like holes on a skin or holes on a plant, and his hair will raise on his body. It's the weirdest thing. And he's not like, you know, like going to run away from it, but it freaks him out on like a psychological, like an internal level. I don't know. It's interesting. It's really interesting. So A lot of things to the body that we don't know about.
So
Anyway.
yeah, Jen, I don't think you need to feel strange or weird or like there's anything wrong. But maybe it is worth, and I don't know if you have already, but it might be worth just kind of working through those thoughts with a professional who can just kind of help you think about it more and come up with different theories.
Well, I actually went up to far north Queensland, and there's heaps of them around in the Daintree rainforest, and I actually forced myself to go up to them and touch them, and
you did some
one of the
therapy. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, man, yeah, but I can now talk about them on a surface level, so it sort of worked a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. This might be a good subject of like cognitive behavioral therapy, right? I think this would be like a classic example of something that kind of therapy usually talks about. But I don't know. It sounds like it's just the thing that's in your life that you just kind of have to deal with, and people might make fun of you for it, but we won't make fun of you, Jen. That's fine. You can have all the phobias you want. Anyway, Jen, thanks so much. Thanks so much for calling in. I'm glad that we got to your call.
I love you.
Thanks so much. Got a little bit of cutting off there, but that's okay because Australia, it's on the other side of the world. I understand. And to be fair, there's a lot of things to be afraid of in Australia. Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't think plants. I mean, like that should be just one of many concerns that I
looking up the pictures of a parasitic.
I think you can look it up. I gotta look this up.
Strangler fig. Yeah, that's totally rational to be freaked out about that.
I gotta see this. Oh, you know what? I have seen these before.
Originally, I was going to joke that you might have been Jesus in a past life because he hated figs, but this is
different. Right. That's true. That'd be a good point. But yeah, a plant that's so specific because, like, I feel like as a plant, you wouldn't have any memories, right? I don't know.
Yeah, well, you'd have a little more work to do to describe how that memory would be stored and then transferred. Because people love to say energy is preserved. When things die, their energy is not destroyed. Well, yes, but they leak that heat out. There's no reason to suspect that it maintains that high level of order that requires a brain.
That old entropy thing,
Yeah, exactly. Entropy tends to increase.
Right.